Michael Jordan was 15 years old when Coach Clifton Pop Herring looked him up and down in the Emsley A. Laney High School gymnasium and delivered the words that would change basketball history. "You're too short, kid. Maybe you should try tennis or golf instead." It was October 1978, and Michael had just been cut from his high school varsity basketball team. Standing 5 feet 10 inches in a sport where height was everything, he watched as his best friend Leroy Smith, who was 6 feet 7 inches, made the team despite having less skill and heart than Michael possessed in his little finger. Walking home that afternoon with tears in his eyes and rage in his heart, Michael made a promise that would echo through sports history. "I'm going to show every single person who doubted me that they made the biggest mistake of their lives." That rejection didn't just motivate Michael Jordan. It created the most competitive, driven, and successful athlete the world has ever seen. This is the story of how being told you're not good enough turned an average-sized teenager into the undisputed greatest of all time. Before we dive into the most shocking rejection story in sports history, you need to understand something. What you're about to hear will completely change how you view failure, rejection, and the power of proving people wrong. This isn't just about basketball, this is about human nature, about what happens when you fuel determination with pure anger. Emsley A. Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina was a typical 1970s high school where basketball was king and height was everything. Coach Pop Herring had been coaching for over 20 years and believed he knew talent when he saw it. When he looked at Michael Jordan, he saw a decent player who was simply too small to compete at the varsity level. What Coach Herring didn't see was the fire burning inside Michael's chest, the obsession with perfection that would drive him to practice until his hands bled, the competitive spirit that would refuse to accept any outcome except total domination. He didn't see that he was about to create the most motivated person in sports history. That fall afternoon, when the varsity roster was posted on the gymnasium wall, would become the most expensive coaching decision in basketball history. But for 15-year-old Michael Jordan, it felt like the end of the world. The story you're about to hear gets even more incredible, and trust me, you don't want to miss what Michael Jordan did next. This rejection didn't just motivate him, it transformed him into something that had never existed before in sports history. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell right now, because we're building a community of people who understand that your biggest failures can become your greatest fuel. Every subscriber helps us share these powerful stories with more people who need to hear that rejection is just redirection towards something better. What happens next in Michael's story will show you exactly how to turn your worst moment into your greatest motivation. Don't miss it. Subscribe now. The humiliation Michael felt standing in that hallway was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't just that he had been cut from the team. It was that everyone saw it happen. Students walking by could see his name missing from the list. They could see the disappointment and embarrassment on his face. "Maybe next year, Jordan," said one of the players who had made the team, trying to be encouraging but only making it worse. Michael's best friend Leroy Smith tried to console him, but Michael was beyond consolation. The fact that Leroy had made the team while Michael hadn't felt like a betrayal by the universe itself. They had played together for years, and Michael knew, everyone knew, that he was the better player. When Michael got home that evening, he went straight to his room and closed the door. His mother, Dolores, could hear him crying through the walls. She knocked softly and asked if he wanted to talk. "They said I was too short," Michael said through tears. "Coach Herring said maybe I should try a different sport." Dolores Jordan had raised 5 children and had seen her share of disappointments, but she had never seen Michael this devastated. Her son was usually resilient, bouncing back from setbacks with determination and humor. This was different. "Michael," she said, sitting on his bed, "sometimes the best things that happen to us look like the worst things at first. Maybe this is happening for a reason." Before we continue with Michael's incredible transformation, I need you to drop a comment below. Have you ever been told you weren't good enough at something you loved? Michael's response to that feeling is about to teach you everything you need to know about turning pain into power. That night, Michael Jordan made a decision that would change sports history. Instead of accepting the rejection, instead of trying a different sport, instead of giving up on his basketball dreams, he decided to use the humiliation as fuel for the most intense training regimen any 15-year-old had ever attempted. "I'm going to make them regret this decision for the rest of their lives," Michael told his father the next morning. "Every single person who said I wasn't good enough is going to eat their words." James Jordan recognized something in his son's voice that he had never heard before. This wasn't teenage anger or hurt feelings. This was cold, calculated determination. This was the birth of the most competitive athlete the world would ever see. Michael's plan was simple, but brutal. He would practice basketball every waking moment until he became impossible to ignore. He would grow taller, get stronger, become faster, and develop skills that no coach could overlook. He would transform himself from a too-short reject into the best basketball player anyone had ever seen. The JV team was where cut players were supposed to go, and Michael reluctantly joined. But he didn't approach JV basketball like a consolation prize. He approached it like a laboratory where he could experiment with becoming perfect. Every day after JV practice ended, Michael would stay in the gym for hours, working on his shooting, his dribbling, his defensive stance. He would run sprints until he collapsed, then get up and run more. He would practice the same move hundreds of times until it became automatic. Coach Herring occasionally saw Michael practicing alone and was impressed by his dedication, but he didn't change his assessment. "Good work ethic," he would tell other coaches, "but he's still too small for varsity basketball." Michael's obsession with proving Coach Herring wrong consumed every aspect of his life. He changed his diet, eating more protein to help him grow taller and build muscle. He started doing pull-ups and push-ups every morning before school. He studied basketball like other students studied algebra. But the most important change was mental. Michael developed what would later be called the killer instinct, an absolute refusal to accept any outcome except total domination. Every pickup game became a personal vendetta. Every practice drill became a chance to prove his superiority. His JV teammates noticed the change immediately. "Michael started playing like every game was personal," said David Bridges, who played alongside him. "Like someone had insulted his family, and he was out for revenge." Michael averaged 28 points per game on the JV team, leading them to an undefeated season. But statistics weren't enough for him. He wanted to embarrass the varsity team that had rejected him. He wanted to make Coach Herring question every decision he had ever made. The opportunity came during practice scrimmages when junior varsity played against varsity. These were supposed to be teaching moments where the older, more experienced varsity players would dominate the younger JV kids. Michael turned them into personal showcases. In one memorable scrimmage, Michael scored 35 points against the varsity team, including several dunks that left everyone speechless. His growth spurt had finally started, and he was now 6 feet 2 inches and still growing. But more than his height, it was his intensity that intimidated the varsity players. "He played like he hated us," said one varsity player years later, like we had done something terrible to him personally. By his junior year, Michael had grown to 6 feet 4 inches, and his game had evolved from good to extraordinary. But Coach Herring was stubborn and had made his assessment of Michael's potential. "He's improved," Herring admitted to other coaches, "but I still don't think he has varsity-level talent." This assessment became even more ridiculous when Michael started dominating older players in pickup games around Wilmington. College players home for summer break would come to the local courts, and Michael would consistently outplay them. Word was spreading that Laney High School had a player who was special, but somehow that player was still on the junior varsity team. The breaking point came during a practice where Michael was called up to scrimmage with the varsity team because they were short players. Michael proceeded to score at will against the starters, including a sequence where he stole the ball from the point guard, drove coast to coast, and dunked over the center. After practice, several varsity players approached Coach Herring privately. "Coach, that JV kid is better than half our starters," said the team captain. "Why isn't he on varsity?" Herring's response revealed the depth of his misjudgment. "He's got some skills, but he doesn't have the basketball IQ for varsity level. He's just an athlete." This assessment would have been laughable to anyone who watched Michael play. His basketball IQ was already college level, his court vision was exceptional, and his understanding of game situations was far beyond his years. But Herring couldn't see past his initial judgment. Michael learned about these conversations, and they fueled his fire even more. "Basketball IQ?" he said to his father. "I'll show them basketball IQ." Michael's promotion to varsity finally came in the middle of his junior year, not because Coach Herring recognized his talent, but because injuries to varsity players left the team desperate for bodies. Even then, Herring started Michael on the bench, using him as a sixth man. Michael's first varsity game was against Jacksonville High School, Laney's biggest rival. He came off the bench in the second quarter and immediately changed the game's momentum. He scored 22 points in 18 minutes, including a game-winning shot that left the opposing coach asking, "Who was that kid?" But the most satisfying moment came when he looked over at Coach Herring during a timeout and saw something he had been waiting 2 years to see: regret. Herring was finally realizing that he had wasted almost 2 full seasons of having the best player in the state sitting on his JV team. After the game, local sports writers approached Michael for interviews. "How long have you been playing varsity basketball?" one reporter asked. "This is my first game," Michael replied. "Coach Herring thought I was too short for varsity until this year." The reporter looked confused. "Too short? You're 6 feet 4 inches. "I was 5'10" when he cut me as a sophomore," Michael said. "He said I should try tennis or golf instead." That quote made it into the local newspaper, and suddenly Coach Herring's coaching decisions were being questioned publicly. Other coaches in the conference started asking how Laney had kept their best player hidden for 2 years. Once Michael became a varsity starter, his true talent became impossible to ignore. He averaged 29 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists per game during his junior season, leading Laney to the state playoffs. College scouts who had never heard of Emsley A. Laney High School started showing up to games. But Michael wasn't satisfied with individual success. He had learned that the best revenge was winning, and he was determined to win everything possible. He turned his teammates into believers, pushing them to play at levels they didn't know they could reach. "Michael made us all better," said Buzz Peterson, who played alongside him. "But he also made us scared of disappointing him. He had this look when you made a mistake that made you never want to make that mistake again." College recruiters started calling the Jordan house daily. Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, and dozens of other schools wanted to offer scholarships to the player who had been sitting on JV just months earlier. Coach Herring found himself in the awkward position of taking credit for developing a player he had actively held back. In interviews with college coaches, he would claim that Michael's junior varsity experience had been part of a deliberate development plan. Michael saw through this revisionist history, and it made him even more motivated. "Now he wants to take credit for my success," Michael told his father. "The same coach who said I was too short and didn't have basketball IQ." The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the real story. Coach Herring was now being praised for coaching the best high school player in North Carolina, when in reality he had done everything possible to prevent that player from succeeding. By his senior year, Michael Jordan was the most heavily recruited player in North Carolina, standing 6 feet 6 inches with skills that college coaches had never seen in a high school player. He had his choice of any program in the country. The recruitment process became a chance for Michael to reflect on how far he had come. When Dean Smith from the University of North Carolina visited the Jordan home, Michael's mother told the story of his sophomore year cut. "Coach Smith," Dolores Jordan said, "you should know that Michael was told he wasn't good enough for his high school team just 3 years ago." Dean Smith looked at Michael with amazement. "You were cut from your high school team? That might be the worst coaching decision in basketball history." Michael chose North Carolina partly because of Dean Smith's reputation for developing players, but also because he wanted to stay close enough to home that Coach Herring and everyone else who had doubted him could watch his continued success. His final high school game was against the same Jacksonville team where he had made his varsity debut. Michael scored 39 points and grabbed 15 rebounds, leading Laney to the state championship. After the game, he was named North Carolina's Mr. Basketball. During the trophy presentation, Michael was asked about his motivation for such an outstanding senior season. His answer was pure Michael Jordan. "I just wanted to make sure that everyone who said I wasn't good enough had to watch me succeed." In the crowd that night was Coach Herring, who finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The player he had dismissed as too short was now considered one of the best high school players in the country. At the University of North Carolina, Michael continued his transformation from rejected teenager to basketball legend. His freshman year, he hit the game-winning shot in the NCAA championship game, announcing himself to the entire country as a player who performed best under the biggest pressure. But even at Carolina, Michael faced skeptics who questioned whether his high school success would translate to college basketball. Some coaches and analysts suggested he was just another athletic player who wouldn't be able to compete against superior college talent. These doubts provided Michael with fresh motivation. He approached college basketball the same way he had approached proving Coach Herring wrong, with obsessive preparation and an absolute refusal to accept anything less than perfection. Michael practiced like every drill was being graded, said his UNC teammate Sam Perkins. He couldn't stand the thought of anyone being better than him at anything basketball-related. Dean Smith, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history, later said that Michael was the most competitive player he had ever coached. He turned every practice into a competition, every drill into a personal challenge. He couldn't even play casual pickup basketball. Everything had to matter. By his junior year at UNC, Michael was being discussed as a potential NBA draft pick. The same height that had gotten him cut from his high school team was now considered perfect for an NBA shooting guard. When Michael declared for the 1984 NBA draft, experts projected him as a top 5 pick. The transformation from too short high school reject to potential NBA lottery selection was complete. But Michael's story of proving people wrong was just beginning. Even after his college success, Michael Jordan faced one more significant rejection that would fuel his legendary NBA career. Despite being the most talented player in the 1984 draft, he was selected third overall, behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. The Portland Trail Blazers, who had the second pick, chose Bowie over Jordan because they needed a center and thought Jordan was just another shooting guard. This decision would haunt the franchise for decades and provide Michael with motivation for his entire career. "They passed on me because they didn't think I was special enough," Michael said years later. "Just like Coach Herring passed on me because he didn't think I was tall enough. Some people never learn." The Chicago Bulls, picking third, couldn't believe their luck when Jordan fell to them. But even in Chicago, there were doubts about whether Jordan could lead a team to championships. Critics called him too selfish and too concerned with individual statistics. These criticisms were eerily similar to Coach Herring's assessment that Jordan didn't have basketball IQ. Once again, Michael was being underestimated by people who couldn't see past their own limited understanding of what made a great player. Michael's response was the same as always: let his performance do the talking. His rookie season, he averaged 28.2 points per game and was named Rookie of the Year. But individual awards weren't enough. He wanted championships, and he wanted to win them in a way that would force everyone who had ever doubted him to acknowledge their mistake. Michael Jordan's NBA career became the ultimate revenge story against everyone who had ever said he wasn't good enough. 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and a legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time, all fueled by the memory of being told he was too short for high school basketball. Throughout his career, Michael never forgot the lesson he learned from Coach Herring's rejection. Every opponent became Coach Herring. Every critic became another person who needed to be proven wrong. Every game became another opportunity to show that the people who doubted him had made a terrible mistake. "I took everything personally," Michael said in his Hall of Fame speech. "Every slight, every doubt, every person who said I couldn't do something, I used it all as motivation." His former teammates and coaches confirmed that Michael's competitiveness wasn't just about winning, it was about proving superiority. He didn't just want to beat opponents. He wanted to embarrass them the way he had been embarrassed in that high school hallway. The most telling moment came in 1995 when Michael returned to Wilmington for a charity event. Coach Herring, now retired, approached him after the event to congratulate him on his success. "Michael, I want you to know how proud I am of what you've accomplished," Herring said. Michael's response was polite but cold. "Coach, I accomplished this despite what you did, not because of it. You told me I wasn't good enough, and I spent my entire career proving you wrong." Sports psychologists have studied Michael Jordan's career as a perfect example of how rejection can be transformed into motivation. His high school cut didn't just make him work harder, it fundamentally changed his relationship with competition. "Michael turned every basketball game into a personal vendetta," said Dr. Bob Rotella, a sports psychologist who worked with numerous professional athletes. "He played like every opponent had personally insulted him because in his mind they had." This psychological approach made Michael virtually unbeatable in crucial moments. When other players felt pressure, Michael felt opportunity. When games were on the line, he became more confident, not less, because proving people wrong was what he lived for. The most famous example came in the 1998 NBA Finals when Michael hit the game-winning shot against Utah with 5.2 seconds remaining. As he walked off the court, he was heard saying, "That's for everyone who said I was done." Even at age 35, after winning 5 championships and establishing himself as the greatest player ever, Michael was still motivated by people who doubted him. The 15-year-old who had been cut from his high school team never left his psyche. His former teammate, Scottie Pippen, said that Michael's greatest strength wasn't his physical ability, it was his ability to find motivation in any situation. Michael could turn a casual conversation into a reason to destroy you on the basketball court, Pippen said. He never forgot anything anyone said about him. Today, Michael Jordan's name is synonymous with excellence, competitiveness, and the refusal to accept limitations. But none of that would have existed without Coach Herring's decision to cut him from the Laney High School varsity team. The gym where Michael was told he was too short now bears his name. Emsley A. Laney High School retired his jersey and built a shrine to his accomplishments. Coach Herring, who passed away in 2015, spent his final years being reminded daily of the mistake that created the greatest basketball player in history. "That cut was the best thing that ever happened to me," Michael said in his final interview as a player. "It taught me that other people's opinions of my abilities didn't matter. What mattered was what I believed about myself and how hard I was willing to work to prove it." Michael's story has inspired millions of people who have faced rejection or been told they weren't good enough. His message is simple but powerful. Use doubt as fuel, turn rejection into motivation, and never let anyone else define your potential. The Michael Jordan brand, now worth billions of dollars, uses the slogan, "Become legendary." But Michael's real legend isn't his 6 championships or his scoring records. It's his proof that being told no can be the beginning of the greatest yes of your life. Young athletes around the world now dream of being cut from their teams because they know Michael Jordan's story. They understand that rejection isn't the end of the road. It's just the fuel needed to travel further than anyone thought possible. Coach Herring's decision to cut Michael Jordan has been called the worst coaching decision in sports history. But maybe it was actually the best thing that ever happened to basketball. Without that rejection, the world might never have seen what happens when unlimited talent meets unlimited motivation. Michael Jordan proved that being too short was just another person's limited vision. He showed that the only height that really matters is how high you're willing to climb after someone tells you that you can't. If this story inspired you to turn your rejections into rocket fuel for success, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear that being told no is just the universe's way of asking, how badly do you want it? Remember, your biggest failures are just setups for your greatest comebacks.